The Lunchtime Discovery Series. It's good to be with you for another edition of our program. I'm your host today, Jerry Reynolds, filling in for Chris Smith, the regular host for this series. I'm head of outreach at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, and I'm delighted to host today's Lunchtime Discovery Talk. The Lunchtime Discovery Series is organized by the North Carolina Office of Environmental Education within the Department of Environmental Quality, and it is broadcast from us here at the Museum of Natural Sciences. We have a great presentation for you today. And remember, our program is interactive, so be sure to drop your thoughts and questions in the chat on YouTube and comments on Facebook as we go, and we'll answer all those questions during or after the talk. Today's program is coming from the Western North Carolina Nature Center in Asheville, North Carolina. And joining us from Asheville is Tori Duval, Outreach Education Program Manager for the Friends of the Western North Carolina Nature Center. Tori, we are so glad to have you join us today. Welcome to our Lunchtime Discovery Series.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to virtually interact with everyone today. So I'm going to be doing the first part of our program. I have someone in here with me. So this is Eli, and Eli is going to be popping in. We'll introduce him officially later, but he's going to be popping in for another part of our program. We're going to start with the history of the red panda, how we even know that the red panda is here. Then we're going to talk about the red pandas that live at the Nature Center. And then we actually have a third very special guest. We're going to bring out one of our animal keepers who takes care of our red pandas, and she's going to be doing a lot of like the Q&A section of our program. So we've got all different kinds of people so that hopefully you don't get bored of one of us. We want to keep it as much variety as possible there. All right.
That sounds great. So Tori, take it away. We've got a lot of eager people wanting to learn about this red panda.
Wonderful. Yes. So the more questions, the better. So like we mentioned, it's an interactive program. So please feel free to throw questions into the chat. And Jerry's going to give those to me as they come up, as they're relevant to what we're talking about. So you don't have to save your question until the Q&A portion if you don't want to. So we're going to do some questions throughout as well. So as I mentioned, we are from the WNC Nature Center. And so before we even get started into what the red panda is and why we have red pandas around here, I just really quickly wanted to do an overview of the WNC Nature Center because not everyone has visited before. So the Nature Center is a zoo. We are accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which means that we just have really high standards for not only our animal welfare, but also for things like education. So that's all part of AZA, is having a wonderful education experience, as well as having an excellent welfare experience for our animals. We're a little different from most zoos because all of the animals that live at the Nature Center come from the mountains of North Carolina. So they are historic to the southern Appalachian Mountain region. They either live here now or historically they used to live around here. So for example, we do have gray wolves living at the Nature Center right now. We do have a mountain lion, or you might know them as a cougar, living at the Nature Center right now. And both of those critters don't live here in the wild anymore, but historically they were native to this area. So this is just a smattering. This is quite a few pictures here, but these are just a few of the critters that live with us at the Nature Center. We're very proud of our animal friends. But of course, the animal that we're going to be talking about today, the one that we're focusing on, is the red panda, which is probably one of our most well-appreciated popular animals that lives at the Nature Center. So before we hop into the red pandas that live with us and current day red pandas, I really want to talk about why we have red pandas, because I have sad news for anybody who lives in North Carolina. You're never going to see a red panda wandering through your backyard because they don't live around here. So obviously they don't live around here now, but millions of years ago, their ancestor used to. So we have red pandas at the Nature Center because they are the first of our prehistoric Appalachian animals. So animals that lived here millions of years ago. And we know that pandas lived here, red pandas or the ancestor, lived here millions of years ago because of an amazing site called the Gray Fossil Site, which is in Tennessee. It's right outside of Johnson City. So I'm going to give you a quick background of how we found out that the Bristol's panda actually lived in this area. So this is the outside of the museum, the Natural History Museum. In the year 2000, the Tennessee Department of Transportation was building a road. And as they were building this road, they started construction and they found some bones. And so they very thankfully kind of closed off the area and brought in a professional to come check out the bones and realized that this was a really incredible, really special fossil site. So the mayor decided, you know what, we're gonna make this place totally protected. They stopped construction in that area. They actually changed the whole location of the road. They moved where the road was gonna be, and they brought in experts to kind of check out what was happening at this site. So they raised grant money. The Eastern Tennessee State University raised grant money to protect the site and to build this museum. So this natural history museum right here, which is built on the site, was built through grant funds, which is fantastic. So the museum itself and the fossil site is run by ETSU. So the curator of the museum is a professor at ETSU. Most of the people that work at Gray Fossil Site are grad students. They do also have a small staff of a few paid staff members as well as volunteers, but the vast majority of the work is done by grad students. So that's just an excellent picture of students working hard and doing what they do best. So what they discovered as they started to kind of dig into this site is that it was about 5 million years old. So this was about a 5 million year old site, and it was originally a forested pond ecosystem. So the pond it was about 5 acres. The site is about 5 acres, and it's about 140 feet deep. So it's a pretty deep pond, but it was a pond ecosystem, and it was active for between 10 to 15,000 years. So for 10 to 15,000 years, this was a pond, and it had all sorts of animals coming up to it to drink. It had animals living in it. And what would happen is it was very, very rich in clay, because if you live in this part of North Carolina and the parts of Tennessee that we're talking about, very rich in clay. We have a high clay content in our soil. So what would happen was from the bottom up, this clay would start to thicken and things would get stuck in it. So seeds, bones, rocks, and all sorts of other things were collecting in these layers of mud and clay that were slowly building up. And over time, those layers got higher and higher. Eventually, it all filled in with mud and there was no pond anymore. And everything that was stuck in that mud and that clay became fossils. So that's how we got the bones and the seeds and everything that we're finding in these deposits today. This is a great shot of the inside of the museum. I highly recommend that if you have the opportunity to visit the Gray Fossil Site in the museum, that you do so. We've gone on several staff field trips there, and it is absolutely amazing the things that they have found. So these are a few of the fuller fossils that are on display, but they've got a really, really wonderful setup. You can actually watch grad students digging. They dig almost every single day at the Gray Fossil Site, and you can also, they have very large glass windows in their indoor portion of the museum where they're working on putting little pieces of fossils together, and it's pretty entertaining to watch them because they're just going about their business. They got their headphones in, you know, they're listening to music and they're working with microscopes and they're putting all their little fossil pieces together, and you can just kind of stand outside and look in through the glass windows and watch them do this work. So it's a really interactive museum. So at the time, 5 million years ago, that this pond had formed and these mud layers were starting to form, the landscape in our area was pretty similar, but the temperature was different. So it was a lot warmer. It was more like southern Georgia, northern Florida in our area. So it was a warmer climate. And a lot of the animals that lived there at the time obviously do not live here now. So a few of the examples besides the panda that we're talking about that lived in this area, they found tapirs, which is really, really exciting. And we're going to check out a tapir skull in just a minute. They've also found rhinos. They found mastodons. They found saber-toothed cats. They found all sorts of reptiles. So lots of different types of snakes and turtles. They found a couple different birds as well. So they found a huge variety of animals, many of which don't live here today. So those are some really, really exciting finds at the Gray Fossil Site. And sometimes we get the question, did they find dinosaurs? And they did not find dinosaurs. So the site isn't that old. So since it's only 5 million years old, there are no dinosaurs. The only technical dinosaurs that we could count are the bird fossils that they found. So it's just a different time period. But of course, the one that everyone wants to know about, the one that we're going to be talking about today, is the red panda. So these are some great images from the Gray Fossil Site of the two most complete Bristol's panda skulls that have been found. So the Bristol's panda is the panda that lived here 5 million years ago. And the current day red panda is its ancestor. So these are Bristol's panda skulls, and they're pretty complete, which is very, very exciting. This is just a quick chart to kind of show you the difference in size between the present day red panda and the Bristol's panda. So there aren't huge differences between these two animals. So animal A over here on the left is the present day red panda. So this is what the skeleton of like our animals at the Nature Center would look like. And then B and C are the two most complete Bristol's panda skeletons that have been found at Gray Fossil. So they haven't been, complete. They're still missing like a few ribs or a few vertebrae here and there, but they're mostly complete, which is very, very exciting. B is female and C is male. So those are the two most complete ones, one male and one female. So as you can see, one of the major differences is just size between these two animals. And we do have, before I flip back over so that y'all can see my face, I do have one more image to show you. So this is a wonderful artist rendering. Aaron Woodruff did this to kind of show the size difference between the Bristol's panda, which would be on the left, and then the present day red panda, which would be on the right. So really, really similar dental structure and things like that. The biggest difference is just that the Bristol's panda, like so many other animals, was bigger than it is today. So what we're gonna do now is I've got some really fun biofacts to share with you all. So biofacts, in case someone doesn't know, is just an object that came from a once living animal or a replica of a once living animal. So we're gonna be looking specifically at some skulls and some other 3D printed fossils today. So everything that we're looking at today is a replica. I don't have any real skulls with me today. One of the major reasons why, here we go, we got a lovely little critter behind us there. One of the major reasons why I don't have an authentic red panda skull to share with you all is because, and Eli is going to talk about this more, they are an endangered species. So it's very, very difficult to get authentic biofacts because they are protected as it should be. We want them to stay protected and we want to make sure that they stay safe. So we're going to be looking first at our red panda skull here. So I've got a few different things to show you. So the first one, I'm going to kind of have these side by side. One of these is a red panda and one of these is our Bristol's panda. So this kind of yellower one of the two, and I know our lights are a little bright on here. This is our red panda skull. And then our Bristol's panda is over on this side. And as you can see, super similar shape. The dentition is similar as well. Let me see if I can, no, that's as far as it wants to zoom in. The dentition is very, very similar as well. The biggest difference between the two is going to be that size. And I think we had a question coming into the chat.
Yes,
I really appreciate.
Yeah, you see that question. So it looks like a raccoon. So why do you call it a panda?
Yes, so they do look like raccoons. And I think that Eli is going to brush a little bit more about why the red panda was named the red panda. But the very, very quick answer to that question, it's an awesome question, is because they eat a similar diet to the giant panda. And so it was originally thought that they were related. We have since discovered that red pandas are neither closely related to pandas or to raccoons. They're actually their own separate family. And Eli is going to tell you a lot more about the family that they're in. But I really, really like that question. That was awesome. So the Bristol's panda skull that we're looking at here, so our whiter one, I'm going to scoot our red panda out of the way. The only reason we have this is because Gray Fossil Site is so generous. We've partnered with them, and they actually sent us 3D scans of a lot of their fossils, and that allowed us to 3D print these skulls. So this is 3D printed. This one is in white. Everything else that I'm going to show you is black for a couple different reasons. Luckily, it shows up better on camera. But we also 3D printed all of our other ones in black because that's what color they usually are when they come out of the ground. So normally when we think about fossils, maybe we're thinking of like Jurassic Park, and I mean, I do, so no judgment. Maybe we're thinking about that scene where he's like brushing the bones off and you can see them and they're really nice and clean and together and they look pretty white. That's not how they are coming out of the ground, especially when you've got a site that was a big old pond with a lot of mud. So usually they're coming out black or really, really dark brown, and they are getting cleaned off, but this is sort of what they look like when they come out. So we thought it'd be fun to 3D print some stuff in black. So everything else that we're gonna look at came from the gray fossil site, from their scans. And there are other types of animals that lived in this area. So this one right here is a ground sloth tooth. So this is the tooth, this guy right here. Actually, it'd be upright, so there's our tooth right there. And then everything else around it would be like a piece of the jawbone that would hold it in place. So as you can see, it's pretty flat. If you know much about sloths, you know that they eat a lot of plant material. And so they had some pretty flat teeth for crushing plant material. Another plant eater, much larger than the ground sloth, would be the mastodon. This is, I'm gonna put the red panda skull in frame just so you all can see the size difference. This is a single molar from a mastodon. So this is a single mastodon tooth, just one, which is about over twice the size of the entire head of the current day red panda, which is pretty cool. So that's our next biofact. This is a mastodon tooth, so another critter that amazingly lived in this area. And we've got a molar from that guy. And again, this was something that we were able to 3D print using the Asheville Maker Studio, which is a really, really wonderful resource if you are local to our area, and using the scans from Gray Fossil Site. I'm going to share just a few more, and then I'm going to turn our presentation over to Eli so we can talk about our present day red pandas.
And Tori, just one question in the chat about the Bristol panda, of course, is extinct, and the red panda is the only living relative to the Bristol panda that we know?
That is correct. Yes,
okay.
That's the only one we know of. So they are just the only, poor little things. They're the only things in their family. That's a great question. And then the last thing that I'm going to share with you all, and then I will turn it over to Eli so that he can talk about the present day red panda, because I know everyone's interested in that. This is, you may have been able to guess, it's very, very large, but it is a vertebrae. So this is the vertebrae from a barrel-chested rhino. So it's a piece of a backbone from a barrel-chested rhino, another animal that incredibly used to live in our mountains. I love to think about rhinos just like grazing in the Appalachian Mountains. It's just so entertaining. So another animal that used to live around here. We use these really wonderful 3D printed fossils when we talk about prehistoric Appalachian with some of our school groups and some of the other visitors that come to the WNC Nature Center. All right, my friends, that was your very brief history lesson. We can talk more about the history during our Q&A session as well. So when we've got our animal keeper here, she probably knows even more than I do about that type of stuff. But what I'm going to do right now is, oh, go ahead, Jerry.
Just one more quick question while we're talking about the Bristol panda. What was the estimated weight of the Bristol panda?
Eli, do you know the estimated weight off the top of your head?
I do not know if they have an estimated
okay.
weight. I'm not sure.
I haven't heard of one. We do have the estimated weight of the present day red panda, so I feel like maybe we could extrapolate from that on the general size that they would be. And that's actually what Eli is going to start talking about. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Eli Strull. He is our Curator of Education and Guest Experience, and I'm going to hop out of the screen and let him take over. Thank you, guys.
Hello, everybody. So glad that I could join you today to talk about pandas. As you can see, they're incredibly cute. They're also really fascinating creatures. So red pandas are a species that's currently here, and we got a chance to talk about why we've got red pandas here at the Nature Center, because the Bristol panda was here in the Southern Appalachians millions of years ago. And today, red pandas live in habitats in the Himalayas, so the other side of the planet. They live in broadleaf forests, as you can see in the photograph behind me. That'd be the kind of habitat that they like to live in. They like to live in high elevation, so they'll live between 7,200 feet and 11,700 feet, which is taller than our tallest mountains here in North Carolina. And those areas are countries like Myanmar, China. They live in Nepal, India, Tibet, Bhutan. So those are all the areas where we have red pandas today. And they are about the size, or excuse me, about the weight of a cat, but they're larger than cats. So the weight is between about 8 and 17 pounds, but this is an average length for a red panda without the tail. The tail would add another 15 inches. So with the tail, it'd be something along those lines. Almost doesn't fit on the screen. So we're talking about an animal that is about the same weight as a cat, but larger, and an animal that, as Tori mentioned, people have had a hard time trying to figure out what taxonomic group they fit into, or what family of animals that they kind of fit with. And originally, because of the way that pandas look, or the red pandas, I should say, people thought that they were related to raccoons. And then through some genetic testing, it was determined that they are actually not related to raccoons. And for a while, they thought that they were related to bears. And then the most recent findings show that red pandas, their closest relative is actually an animal that's extinct. So their closest modern day relatives are the weasels. But the closest relative to the species itself is actually no longer with us. So they're kind of their own thing. And they're really a unique animal. So they fit in the order Carnivorum. And so this is a group of animals like the wolves and large cats, or all cats, I should say, animals that have a certain type of tooth fit into the carnivore group. But red pandas are unique because even though they have those kind of teeth, and Tori showed you them earlier, the teeth are similar to animals that have meat as the primary part of their diet. But with the red pandas, their primary part of their diet is something totally different. So I'm going to step away from the camera real quick and show you something that we've got here for a red panda. I don't know if you can see it because we're using a green screen and this bamboo is green. I'll try to put it in front of myself. So here we've got bamboo. And in the picture, you can see the panda eating bamboo. And even though they are in the group of carnivores, they're mostly herbivores, 95% of their diet. So the vast majority of what they're eating is bamboo. They'll also eat some other things like roots and grasses, fruits, grubs, eggs, but the main thing that they're eating is this bamboo. Bamboo is interesting diet choice. It's real plentiful where the pandas live. So that's the advantage of eating bamboo, is there's lots of it around. It's in the understory or underneath the larger trees where they live. And the bamboo doesn't have a whole lot of nutrition. And so pandas need to eat 20 to 30% of their body weight in bamboo every day. That would be like somebody my size eating between 30 and 50 pounds of food every day. So if you can imagine me eating a few turkeys just to myself, something along those lines, with a bunch of other food, that's what it would be like. So really interesting that they're able to eat and digest the bamboo. The bamboo, I said, is in the under part of where they're living, the understory of the forest that grows underneath the large trees. And then the large trees are where the pandas are finding shelter and where they spend a lot of time. So people sometimes notice the coloration on the pandas and wonder what that's all about. And scientists don't know for sure, but one theory is that mask you can see in the picture right here, the white coloration may help act kind of like a sun deflector to help keep the sun out of their eyes. And the colors are kind of unique of pandas. They're certainly interesting to think about an animal that's red and how that would camouflage in with its environment. But red pandas live in an area where the fir trees have lichen and moss that are red and white. And so they end up blending in exceptionally well with that red coloration that they have. So they're eating bamboo, other small things. They're staying safe in the large evergreen trees, and they're trying to keep themselves safe from animals like jackals and leopards. Those would be their main predators where they live. And that camouflage or the coloration helps them to hide. And they also have, they also have amazing climbing ability. So pandas have, it's called a pseudo thumb, which is kind of an interesting term. And basically what it is, it's a modified wrist thumb. And that allows the panda to grip on. And the idea is that that thumb was originally designed for climbing, but now helps them to grab on to the bamboo. Giant pandas have a pseudo thumb as well that they use to hold on to bamboo. But the idea is that that developed specifically for feeding, whereas in the red pandas is developed for climbing. So if they feel in danger, they'll get up into a tree. And when they're up in the tree, they'll use their long tail for balance. So just like we will put our arms out to balance if we're needing to get some extra balance, the pandas have a tail that's quite long. It's more than half the length of their body. And when they're up in trees, they're using that to balance. And then that tail also can be used for warmth. So the forest that we're talking about where red pandas are found in Asia is really a colder place than it is here. And so they'll use that tail to wrap around their face. They'll use the tail to be able to stay warm as well as balancing. And when they're climbing up in trees, they'll do that to look for shelter. They'll do that to stay safe from predators, and they'll also do it for sunbathing. So if you live in a real cold place and the sun's out, it sure is nice to get into that warmth. Now, here at the Nature Center, it's a little bit warmer than the pandas' habitat in Asia, but it's close. So you can see in this picture here, there's some snow in the background. Pandas have no problem when it's snowy. And where they live, it usually doesn't get above 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So here at the Nature Center, when it gets warm, the pandas have access to go inside and they have air conditioning. So we allow them to have the same kind of habitat features and the same kind of climate that they would have living where they do. Now, where they live, they have territories. So each panda will have its own area where it lives, and that'll be the spot where if there are insects or eggs to eat, they would be the one to focus on that. And they have their own patches of bamboo, and it's usually about a square mile where a panda's territory is. In that territory to market, they'll use scent glands, and they've got scent glands at the rear of the body as well as in their feet. And they'll use those markings to let other pandas know where they live. And they've got this amazing adaptation, I'll use that word. So we're talking about something that is part of a panda's body that allows them to survive that no other animal no other carnivore has. And it's this cone-like structure on the bottom of their tongue and allows them to draw liquid up that then gets moved to a gland in their mouth to help them smell. So they do have nostrils and they'll use their nostrils to smell, but they also have this amazing ability to use their tongue to help them smell. So
Eli, we
yeah.
do have a few questions if you'd like to address this. One question relates to the Bristol panda. Any evidence of what they ate 5 million years ago? Was there bamboo in that lake too?
That is an excellent question. So Bristol's pandas were eating meat as far as we know. They were carnivores. So the same family as the pandas, but different diet. Was there another part to that question?
That was the question, but then another question was, are red pandas and Bristol pandas actually related, or is it an evidence of convert or an example of convergent evolution? Do we really know that answer or not? So it's a tricky question.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. As far as I know, they are considered related. So that there are relatives of the red panda in the fossil record. And like I mentioned before, the closest relative is no longer around. But yes, the idea is that they are directly descendant from the Bristol's panda.
Perfect. And one more, and I know you probably have foxes also at Western North Carolina Nature Center. And this question talks about the red coloration of red foxes. Is that a similar reasoning why they're red to why the red pandas are red, as you explained?
Ooh, I love that connection that someone made between an animal that does live here now, like a red fox that has that red coloration, and the pandas, which have a red coloration. I know that in the pandas habitat, there's lots of red in the environment that they blend in with. The red foxes are not originally from North Carolina. They were brought here by people so that people could hunt them, which was the original reason they were brought. And then when the red foxes came in, there was the gray fox that was here. Now the gray fox, like the red pandas, are excellent climbers. And so they like to live in real forested areas. When the red foxes were brought over, the people that brought them over were also clearing large parts of the forest, which made open area, which is the kind of habitat that the red foxes like. I'm not sure if there's a reddish coloration in the environment where red foxes originally are from, which is Europe and potentially North America. They're not positive. So it's an excellent question, and that was a long answer. The short answer is I'm not exactly sure why red foxes have the red coloration. So I mentioned how gray foxes can climb, and that's because they can rotate their wrists, which most dogs can't do. Red pandas have amazing ability to flex their wrists as well, and that allows them to both climb up a tree, but also straight down. And I'll show you a video in just a little bit where our animal curator talks about that. But red pandas are amazing climbers. They have semi-retractable claws, kind of like cats, to be able to pull their claws part of the way in and out so that they can climb up a tree. And the red pandas will hang up in a tree to stay safe, but also to stay warm, as I mentioned. And they have these amazing abilities when it gets cold that are really unique. So red pandas go dormant when it's cold. So their body temperature and their breathing actually slows down for a few hours. Because they have that low nutrition food in the bamboo, they don't have a lot of ways to get nutrition in. And so they've come up with a strategy that allows them to not need as much energy because they kind of go dormant. So dormant is one of those words that can be a little confusing. It's similar to hibernating, but it's different because the red pandas, like the one behind me here, you can see kind of lounging in that picture. They'll have their body temperature and their breathing slow down for just a few hours, so they don't need to take in as much energy because they're not using as much energy. And where red pandas live, there are not that many left. And that's really another reason that we have red pandas here. There's the connection to the Bristol's panda, but also there's a conservation importance to having pandas. And that's the fact that there's only about 10,000 left in the wild. So because of poaching, hunting, as well as habitat loss, there's much fewer pandas than there once were. And so being part of AZA, which Tori mentioned, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, we're part of a network of facilities that have red pandas under human care so that we can preserve those genetics, learn more about them, and then make responsible choices to be able to help protect red pandas in the wild. And the two red pandas that we have here at the Nature Center, one of them is behind us in that picture. We've got a male and a female, and they came to us in 2018. So about 3 years ago, we got our two red pandas. And we got them through the Species Survival Plan group. And Species Survival Plan, as Tori kind of coined, is basically like a dating service for wildlife. So it's animals that are being protected or being managed in one way or another. And the Species Survival Plan, the folks that work on that group are the ones that determine which animals breed with which other animals based on their genetics, so that we don't have animals that are too closely related breeding together. The animals that we got were done breeding. They had a chance to have babies. So our female, her name is Lefa, and she was born on June 11th, 2009. So she is now 12 years old. She was born at the Red River Zoo in North Dakota. And she's had 8 cubs in her life. So the cubs are born in the spring. The amount of time that they carry their cubs varies. And they think that they have delayed implantation. And when the cubs are born, it's perfectly timed for when the bamboo is shooting. So the most nutritious part of the bamboo is available right when those cubs come out. So usually they have 1 to 4 cubs. 2 is the most common number that they'll have at one time. And Lefa has had 8 in her lifetime, and 4 of those were with Phoenix, which is our male. So Lefa was behind me, and that's our male Phoenix there. And Phoenix was born in Canada. I don't know if we have any Canadians in the audience, but Phoenix was born in Winnipeg, and he is 10 years old. So he was born in 2011.
Eli, I've got a couple of relevant questions of what you're talking about now. First of all, with that nice photo with the panda sticking its tongue out, this is a really cool question. Is the tongue gland why they have their tongue stuck out in so many of the photos, or is it just because the photographers found it cute?
That is an excellent question. I'm going to defer to our animal keeper, who has joined us silently in the background here, and will be joining us after the video for more questions and answers. But Lori, do you know the answer to that question? If they put their tongue out more than other animals because of that cone-like structure on the tongue, or?
I definitely see them do that. I know it's a photo where it's not so, but sometimes they also have their mouth open for temperature regulation, so they can't, if they get too hot, they'll also lay out stretched over items if they get too warm. So sometimes if you see their mouth open, they might be panting if they're too warm, and then they also use that. You'll
have to repeat that so that we can hear or.
Oh yeah, I'll say that. So what Lori was saying is that the pandas often will put their tongues out, and we're not positive if they do that more often than other animals because of that feature on the bottom of the tongue, that cone-like structure. She also mentioned that they will keep their mouth open for temperature regulation.
Okay.
So I told you the strategies that they have to keep warm when it's cold, but they also will pant when it's hot.
Okay, great answer. And here's a question, again, talking about the evolution of this species from the Bristol panda. Do we have any theories on why the red panda evolved to eat predominantly bamboo from an ancestor that primarily ate meat? Any theories on that?
Yeah, that's really interesting to think about the way those kind of things develop and how and why those things came to be. And I haven't read anything about theories on why the red panda moved from an ancestor that ate meat to the modern day animal that focuses on just eating plants. But it's the same thing with the giant panda. Even though they're not related, for a while people did think they were related because they eat the same food. They're not considered too close taxonomically, but they have the same thing.
But besides the giant panda, are there any other mammals in carnivora that have gone from a carnivore diet to a predominantly vegetarian diet?
That is an excellent question. I'm trying to think if there's any other one. Yeah, so black bears have the same kind of tooth structure as the other animals in the order Carnivora, similar to the panda and the giant panda bear. And their teeth have been modified over time to be able to crack nuts and things like that. But I don't know of any other animals that are in that Carnivora group that focus on plants.
I'm not thinking of anything else either myself.
In just a minute, I'll see if I can look it up for you.
Okay. And one more quick, this is probably a short answer. What is the lifespan of the red panda?
That is an excellent question. Red pandas in the wild, 8 to 10 years would be a long life.
Yeah.
And they're mature at about 18 months. Here at the Nature Center, 15 years would be a long life for our pandas. And 23 is the longest that red panda's ever been documented as living under human care. So here at the Nature Center, the red panda that you see behind me sees a doctor more than I do. It's got regular food, protection, so all those things allow for a longer lifespan.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So if there's no other questions, and thank you all so much for those questions. Those are great. And what a nice opportunity to kind of interact a little bit. We'll move on to a video that we took of our pandas with our animal curator. And Aaron, our animal curator, will go through some of the common questions that we get about pandas. And after we watch the video, then we'll open it up for more questions and answers with Tori and Lori. And I'll be behind the scenes trying to find the answers to the questions that I didn't know the answers to. All right, here we go.
My name is Erin Oldred, and I'm the animal curator of the Western North Carolina Nature Center, which means that I take care of all the animals here and make all the decisions for the animals here. Red pandas are not related to the giant pandas or raccoons or lemurs. They're really their own unique individual animal. They were really named panda because they eat bamboo similar to the giant panda, and the red just because of their beautiful coloration. Their closest relative would be the otter or weasel in the mustelid family. Red pandas are found in Asia, in the bamboo forests of China and Nepal, so where it's cold. We're very lucky that Asheville has a very similar climate to that, so the red pandas love the cooler weather. They enjoy being in snow and just not having hot or humid temperatures. Red pandas really don't make a lot of noises, but every once in a while we'll hear a hiss, or they can also make a chuff quack, which is really hard to describe, but it's kind of like crinkling of a plastic bottle. But normally they're very quiet, and they have a lot of communication that's non-verbal, or where it's very quiet. So faces or body positioning, the way they look at each other, we'll often see that between Lefa and Phoenix. So red pandas, really, that's important for them. They don't have a lot of things to protect them. So being able to climb up a tree very quickly with their strong upper body and their strong claws is going to help them. And also their camouflage, they blend in very well to the trees, being that red coloration. If you're a predator and you're down on the ground and you look up to the sun, that red coloration is going to disappear in those treetops. So camouflage and being able to move quickly in trees is very important for the red panda. But they have very sharp claws, and they have very strong arms to be able to pull themselves up a tree. But they can also go straight down a tree as well, and they use those claws to get the traction. He's going to the bathroom. My favorite thing about being a keeper is just getting to know our animals. Each animal has their own unique individual personality, and it's really neat over time as the animals start to trust you and you build a relationship with them, learning that personality.
All right, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed our little bit of red panda footage. So that was Erin, our animal curator. So she's in charge of all of the critters here at the Nature Center. And I'm going to introduce Lori Hyatt, who has very, very kindly given up some of her time. And she is actually one of our animal keepers here at the Nature Center. So Lori, what do you do here?
So I do a variety of things. I work with our pandas. I'm their primary keeper. I also work with our foxes, our gray and red foxes, and our birds of prey as well.
That is absolutely fantastic. Before we jump into questions with our wonderful little keeper here, Eli did look up answers to a few of the questions that we had earlier. So the Bristol's panda, they estimate weighed anywhere between 17 to 33 pounds. And if you remember, the red panda was like, what, like 8 to 10 or something? What was that? Is that about right? So definitely bigger than the present day red panda. The other question that we had about having potentially animals in the carnivore family that were herbivorous. Eli did look that one up as well, and it looks like the giant panda and the red panda are the only two that we know of who are mainly herbivores, even though they're in that carnivore family. So those were both fantastic questions that we have official answers for you now. And we are available for any questions, especially Lori here, for any questions that you may have.
Okay, all right. We've been doing a really great job at answering the questions as we've been going. So I think we've covered most of them. Here's one that just popped up that I think I know the answer to, but are those red pandas litter trained? We saw that in the video, which I'm glad she shared what that was, because that's what I thought it was.
I left that in. I thought it was entertaining.
They do have litter boxes. They, for the most part, will use those, but occasionally they'll go outside of them. But yeah, for the most part, they do go in those litter boxes around their habitat. So.
Excellent, excellent. I'm looking to see if we have any other questions right now. Again, we
Yeah, if we have any other questions popping in, feel free to share them. What we were watching during that video was, yes, we were watching Erin answer questions, which was wonderful, but that was also a training and enrichment session for our pandas. So that's something that we do with all of our animals every single day. They get some sort of special enrichment, something different to make their day exciting. It could be a new smell, it could be a food, it could be a sound, if that's something that motivates them. It could be rearranging the furniture in their habitat. It can be handling them if they're an animal that's handled, like for some of our snakes and turtles, some of our smaller animals, especially the ones that we use as education ambassadors. So that training session that we got to see with the pandas was a really, really great example of enrichment. We do have some really fun videos of enrichment that we can share while we're waiting for other questions to pop up. One of the ones that I always think of is when we are looking at our kind of October Halloween season. We actually shared pumpkins with a lot of our animals, and one of those animals was the red panda. So we do have some videos of some of our pandas really exploring and enjoying the pumpkins that we gave them for the season. So I think we need to share our screen first. So Eli is going to pull those up for us.
I have a question, because I've heard different numbers. I've heard, I think Eli said that there are maybe 10,000 red pandas left. I saw some other information that gave a much lower number, like 2,500. So
yeah, so it's less than 10,000. So they're on the IUCN. I had to think of the acronym. So it's less than 10,000 in the wild. I've heard 25,000 as well. I've heard a little bit higher, but it's for sure under 10,000, which is why they are listed on the red list as an endangered species. And they are technically protected in those areas, but because their fur is so beautiful, most of the time they're being poached for their fur.
So they're being poached primarily for their fur and not for people who are keeping them as pets or food or anything like that.
Right, not for food, probably occasionally as pets as well, because I'm sure we all know the illegal pet trade is definitely a large issue in our world. But the biggest thing for them is their fur. Yeah. All right, so we've got a quick video to share with you all of one of our pandas. I believe our first video is going to be Lifa, enjoying some special pumpkin enrichment. So this is a nice little seasonal. These are quick. They're not long. They're just little clips that we take while we're having some fun with our critters. And those are grape slices that are on top of the pumpkin there. That is, and Lori can attest to this, Lifa's favorite thing of all time is green grapes. It's very true.
And we actually have a question that and this is directed towards Lori. What is your favorite part of working with red pandas?
You know, it's funny, Erin said something really similar, but definitely my favorite part with working with everybody is just getting to know their personalities. It's such a fun part of the job, getting to know everybody's individual personalities. But I really enjoy also training with them. So I've established a bond with them because I've been working with them for about a year now. So getting to work with them and gain their trust has been really rewarding.
Thank you. Thank you. And someone has also put in the chat asking about, we were talking about herbivores or carnivores that are herbivores. And Patricia mentioned about kinkajous and binturongs. And I'm not really up on those species in terms of how much of their diet is vegetation versus animals. I don't know if you have an answer to that or not.
I am not familiar with those either. I don't think that there's been a lot of instances of animals switching from a carnivore diet over to an herbivorous diet, but I think there's been some instances of lizards actually that have switched over to things like that, but there's not many instances of those.
Right. And here's another question about red pandas. Are they territorial in their native habitat? Do they defend their territory against others?
They definitely will in their habitat, especially over resources. So sometimes they will resource guard. Even with ours, they'll scent mark. So that's something that's common for them. It's funny, they call it a butt wiggle, but they'll do a little butt wiggle when they scent mark, and they do that around their habitat, even ours here too. So
Great.
And even between the two of them, it seems like, especially our female, she has some favorite spots around her habitat that she's not willing to give up to Phoenix. Leafa's in charge in the red panda habitat.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
And we had someone, those are such great videos. Is there a way for our audience to watch those videos later? Do you have them on your website or access to them?
We have some videos on our website. So some of them we save so that we can use them specifically for special like education events like this. But we do have some red panda footage on our social media, especially if you follow us on Instagram or if you're on Facebook. We do regular animal clips. If you go to our website, wildwnc.org, we do have some photos of our animals. We actually have a little Meet Our Animals section so that you can learn a little bit about them and their history as well. So we do regular animal videos on our social media, but some of the videos we save for our own education purposes.
And enjoyment, I'm sure.
And enjoy them, absolutely, yes.
I am not seeing any more questions in the chat right now. I mean, y'all shared so much information, and I have to be honest with you, I really knew very little about the red panda before coming into this, other than they're so darn cute. But really a fascinating animal. The evolutionary history is really interesting, and how rare it is for an animal in carnivora to go to an almost strictly vegetarian diet. So a lot of interesting questions, and of course, that's the neat thing about science, is that we don't have all the answers, and we're still looking for the answers. So it's really neat that we have the connection with the ancestor of red panda, right in our mountains. So that's really a really cool story. I'm so glad that y'all are doing such a great job in telling that story. Anything else you would like to share before we I'm still looking to see if there are any last minute questions in there, but this has been a really great presentation.
Yeah, thank you all so much for having us. If you live in the area, or even if you don't, you can come see Leafa in Phoenix. We are open 7 days a week from 10 to 4 or 4:30. 4:30, sorry, it has recently changed, from 10 to 4:30. So you're welcome to come and see all of the animals that live with us. We'd love to have you as guests. The red pandas are pretty wonderful to watch, even when they're doing nothing but sleeping. As you saw from the photo earlier when Leafa was just kind of like plooped out there. They're always entertaining. They're always fun to watch. So we would love to have you come visit and check them out. And if you see people around in blue uniforms, feel free to ask us any questions you want about the animals, and we will do our best to answer them.
That's great. And I'm going to throw you just two more questions before we close this up. And as I think you just answered one, that people can visit these pandas. They can see them at your facility.
Yes, so they are on exhibit, even when they go into their indoor space. So if it's hot out, like Eli mentioned, they have air conditioning. But we actually have like special glass that you can see into. So you can see into their indoor habitat as well. So you can see them ideally, unless they're hiding up in some weird little corner. As long as the Nature Center is open, they should be on exhibit in some way.
Great. And one more before we close up. Do you have a bamboo crop of your own to feed them?
We do. Yeah, but no, go ahead.
So we actually have a couple, but yeah, we have a large space directly behind their habitat where we grow their bamboo because they eat so much of it. So.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh,
and
yeah.
Bamboo is invasive, and we do know that. So if you were ever to see our bamboo crop, we do have almost like a moat sort of surrounding it to help kind of hopefully keep everything in check and not have bamboo spread everywhere, because it is an invasive species in our area.
Great. Well, listen, thank you so much. I've learned a lot. And Tori, Lori, and Eli, we really appreciate you being with us on the Lunchtime Discovery Series today. Thank you, viewers, for watching and sharing today. Those are really great questions that helped us learn even more. We will be back next week with another edition of this program, Saving the Wild South, Escapades of the Early Botanists. And you notice, botanists, you will not want to miss this one. So remember to follow the Office of Environmental Education on Facebook and Twitter at North Carolina EE, and the website is eenorthcarolina.org. And of course, you can follow the museum on all social media at Natural Sciences, and see upcoming programs on naturalsciences.org. And you also have the information about Western North Carolina Nature Center. Be sure to look on their website and their social media, particularly if you want to follow more about the red panda. So, Tori, anything else you'd like to say to the group before we sign off?
It was really, really wonderful to get all of your questions. I hope that this inspired some love and appreciation for the red pandas. If you love the red pandas and you want to see more of them, we do animalgrams as well for the season. So if you know somebody that loves red pandas and you think that they would want a little shout out from one of our critters, you're welcome to check that out on our website as well. It makes a great Christmas gift. But thank you all so much for joining us. This was fantastic.
Great. Well, thank you again so much. So I appreciate everyone in the audience joining us. And until next week, please take care, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. So bye.